All right, Kiro has finished with task number 2. So I even had time to go and change, as you can see, a different t-shirt. And let's take a look at the steps. So we have the commit hash, files changed, 25 files, and 21 new files created. So let's take a look at the progress file. Let's click on the icon so that we can have a better view from the task progress. So we're now on task number 2. So you can see here the MD file is a little bit broken, but we can fix that later on. Task number 2, implement database schema and core entity status completed. And then we have set up TypeORM configuration with progress. With PostgreSQL, create a comprehensive database schema with 50 entities, implementing TypeORM, databases migration, database feeding, seeding, configuration, configure proper enum types for user roles, lesson types, attachment types, and both types. And you can see all of the entities that were created: user, category, course, course collaborator, section, lesson, attachment, enrollments, and we have all of the explanation here. So let's take a look at the code. So you can see here, I created a connection to the database with the SQLTools, and you can see here the configuration. I gave it a name, port 5432, because we exposed that port, forwarded that port to our host, and the name of the database that it was declared in the Docker Compose file. And then here we have, and then I saved the configuration with save connection. Okay, so if we take a look at the database schema, public, tables, and you can see here the tables. We have courses, and these tables were already populated by Kiro. Let's take a look at it. You can see here that we have 3 users: an admin user, teacher, student. So there's a user for every persona. So we have admin, teacher, and student. That's okay. Then we have courses, and we have 3 courses already created. Let's take a look at category. We have price. We don't have a thumbnail, but we can implement that later on. We have the category UI ID. And then if we can take a look by right-clicking and describe table, and you can see all of the columns here. The ID column, and it's automatically generated with a UUID. Title, description. Then we should have category. Let's see if we have some records in enrollments. Okay, no data. We can populate that data later on. There's only one issue here. If I show you the backend log, you can see here that I have this error because of this crypto library that is not present here. So let's take a look. And I don't know why it's using Node.js v version 18. We can change that to get a recent one. But I'm going to copy this error. And let's ask Kiro to fix this error. We have following error. Please verify after each task that frontend and backend are running okay. Let's see what is he doing, or what's he doing on the Docker file. So I see that it's still on version 20. You can see that it's inspecting the containers, and you can see here that it's just putting Docker Compose down and then up, recreating the containers. And now you can see that every time there is an error, then it's going to try to fix it. So you can see here the crypto issue is resolved, but now there is a TypeORM entity validation error. The issue is with the enum configuration in the answer vote. Okay, you can see here the import of vote type. And now you can see that the backend is okay. So there were some, the backend now is running successfully. Let me check the front end logs to make sure it's also working. Of course, it's working because it hasn't worked on the front end. You see that it's just making a curl command. I'm gonna execute this curl command. It's getting hello world from the backend, so the controller is working correctly. Then another curl to the front end, and it's getting the HTML table page, which means that it's working correctly. But I'm gonna ask to pump Node.js to version 22 because it's gonna be active till October 2025, so maintenance mode till 2027. So in this case, I think we can pump Node.js version to 25. Let's see if we have the 25 Alpine. I'm gonna do this manually so that I don't have to spend some Kiro token just to do something that I can do it on my own. So I'm gonna put here 25 and also on the front end. And then I'm gonna just kill the terminal here. And I'm gonna just execute docker compose down and then docker compose up -- build -- force recreate so that the containers are recreated. Now it's pulling the new Docker image, and let's hope that the code still runs correctly on that version. So we have everything green. The backend is working. And if we verify on the browser, you can see that hello world is present. And if we visit localhost 3000, we have the Next.js app. So it means that we can go and execute the third task. So we can click here. I'm gonna just let it know that I updated Docker files to Node v25. Take it into consideration and run task. So task 3, it's gonna build the authentication and user management system, implement user registration with role selection, student teacher, set up NextAuth version 5 for front-end authentication. It's gonna create the authentication module with JWT strategy, implement email verification system, add password reset functionality. Okay, let's see. That's part of requirement from 1.1 to 9.5. So you can see that I didn't have to click on task 3. I just asked in the chat to execute it. I don't know if you can see here now the spinning icon. And then task in progress. You see task number 3 is in progress now. So you can see that it's already importing the auth controller, is working on that. So we don't have to pay attention to the console now because it's creating those files for us now. So if we take a look in the meantime to the src folder, we see that we have the auth module. We have the module inside. Okay, of course, it still has to implement these files. We have the auth service. That's the service that we're going to be using, injected for authorization. You can see that the injector repository to inject the user repository, the JSON Web Token service, the configuration service, and the email service. And you can see that we have the register method. We have on the register method, it's gonna take the email, password, first name, last name, role from the DTO. So we're gonna have DTO here for the register and login. It's gonna verify if the user exists by calling user repository find one by email. If the user already exists, it's gonna throw an exception, a conflict exception. Then it's gonna salt the password with the bcrypt library. And then it's gonna create the user with email, password hash, first name, last name, role, and is email verified false because it's gonna send the email for the user to verify. Then it's gonna save the user, then it's gonna sign the token. So with JSON Web Token, it's gonna pass the user ID, the type, email verification for the token expires in 24 hours. And then it's gonna send the verification email with the email, first name, and verification token. So we have to take a look at that service just to see what it does. So for login, the same thing. It's gonna find one by email. If the user doesn't exist, it's gonna raise an exception. Then it's gonna compare the password that the user is gonna pass with the hash that we have in the database. Then it's gonna generate a token with that user, and it's gonna return the user without the password and then the tokens. Then there's some helper method, validate user, find by ID, verify email. So that's for the next methods. So you can see here that after it did some of the modification, is calling the backend just to verify that everything is working. And you can see that there is the hello world, and then it's also targeting the front end, even though it isn't working on the front end part. So I think it shouldn't have done it, but I asked it to, and it did it. So you can see here the email service, the not mailer. So maybe it needs to configure some of this email service has to be configured. So let's take a look at the DTO. You can see the class DTO, and then we have the email and the password, and you see this decorator just to say that it is an email that is not, it shouldn't be empty. The password is a string and it shouldn't be empty. For register, of course, we have some more data like the password, first name and last name and role that we don't have for the login. And for the reset password, we have the email, we have the token, and we have the new password. We have here the auth controller also, you can see it. So we have the decorator here for this class to say that this is the auth controller for the route. We have this post method register, and then with the public decorator we can visit that method. And then you see that the register DTO, we get it from the body of the request with the annotation body. Then we just call the auth services register. For the login, it's the same thing. It should respond also with a status OK. Then we have the verify email, the forgot password. So we have almost all of the services there. So it's having some issues with the not mailer. Then it was fixed. It even committed the modification to when it resolves the crypto error and the update to, I think this one is a previous one. Okay, now it's working on the front end by installing the chatcn library. I'm going to say yes to install that library. Let me just verify that it's taking the last one. So I think that's okay. We have the version. If I take a look at the releases, I can see that the last one is 3.5 and here we have 3.5. Okay, so which color would you like to use as the base color? And I'm gonna take slate. All right, now it's working on the front end. Okay, you can see here the npx chatcn latest, so it took the latest one, so that's okay. Now it's creating the components, the UI, the button, card, input, labels, select, alert, and I think that's for the login and register part. So it's having issues with this method. Create transporter doesn't exist of type of import. And of course, we have to set this environment variables, the SMT host and port, user and password. And we're gonna take those from a free server when we're gonna test the email verification. So here is looping on the Docker Compose up, and it's asking me if keep iterating or cancel. I'm gonna cancel because it doesn't have to be in a loop just to read that part. Now the containers are running back again, so it should get the output now. Let's run the curl to the port 4000 so that it verifies that the backend is running and it's working. You see hello world, so now it's gonna go on. And let's also run the front end, and it's getting a 500. Let's see why. So the TW anime CSS is not resolvable. Okay, now maybe let's see what the fix was. Okay, it just worked on the global CSS file. Now it's gonna test the register. You can see here with a post with curl, and it's gonna pass this data. Let's see if it works. And it said it cannot post to auth register. It says not found. It could be that there is an error. Exactly, we have the error here. So with the compose log, by reading the compose logs backend, it found the issue. Now it's editing the email service. Let's see if it manages to solve the issue by itself. I'm gonna trust this command so that I don't have to give it the input because it's just a Docker Compose logs. So I think it's using all code for for the JSON Web Token strategy, and it's not working because of that. You see the sign as async. Let's take a look at the service. So finally, it realized that the issue is with the library version. So I'm not gonna touch the code. I know how to fix it, but I want Kiro to do it. Okay, now it rewrote the code. You can see here, secret and expire ins. Let's see the change here in the library. So the email service also is not found here. I don't know why. Okay, now it's configured the module here with the use factory. So it seems to have solved the auth service issue here with the sign-in method. So the expire in is here. So it means that it had something to do with the JSON Web Token version. Let's run the command again. And it worked. Okay, we were able to register the first user. Now let's try the auth login. And it also worked. And now the register, let's see what's it doing now. Okay, for the front end part. So it's implementing the register on the front end. Now installing some UI libraries that were missing. So now it's gonna rebuild the whole front end container so that the dependencies are installed correctly. Okay, because without the rebuild, then the npm install, it's not gonna work. Okay, let's see if the register endpoint on the front end is working. So it doesn't found this select primitive from Radix UI. Now it's executing npm install for these libraries here. Okay, and now we have a 200 from the front end and 200 from the login. Okay, now you can see here, if we visit auth login, we have the login. If we visit auth register, we have the register part. Let's test it ourselves. In drawing areas, we can change the look and feel later on. I don't like the color palette. I'm gonna use my email, my password, and I'm gonna join as a teacher. Create account and registration successful. And let's see if I can sign in. And of course, I think the email is not verified. We have to set up the, okay, we have to set up the email verification. The tax 3 summary, the backend feature. So the JSON Web Token based authentication is done with NestJS passport, user registration, email verification, password reset, secure password, role-based access. Then from front end, we have NextAuth, we have responsive authentication, complete auth flow, register, login, forgot reset password, session management and handling, security and testing. All API endpoints tested and functional. Front end page is loading correctly. But let's see if it wrote some tests for that. So there are no. So for the backend, we have only the app controller, okay, the default one, and we don't have anything else. So let's ask tests and end-to-end tests for the auth endpoints, both in the front end and backend. For the next features, write first the tests and then the implementation. So you can see for the test, it's using SQLite as a database because we can use the production database in theory, this database for testing purposes, but we can change the configuration here in the test file. If we have another Postgres instance for developing for testing purposes, we can set up everything here. So we have here the auth end-to-end spec file, and you can see describe authentication end-to-end. We have the test user with email, password, first name, last name, and then before executing any test, creating a testing module, and then it's going to configure the config module for the root module. So this is like simulating the app. Then it has to implement or to configure the TypeORM module to use SQLite in memory. Then it's going to create the next application. It's going to create the user repos JWT service. Okay. and then it's going to initialize the app. So before running any test, it has to initialize the app. Then after every test, after all tests are run, it's going to close the app. Then before each test, it's going to clear the repository so that the data are clean. And then you can see here, the first test describe auth register. I should register a new user successfully, and then it's going to wait for a request to the app HTTP server. It's going to post to auth register and send the test user that it created at the beginning. And then it expected 201, it means created. And then it's going to verify the body. It's going to verify that we have a user, that we have an access token, a refresh token. So you can see that it's running the test now and verifying that it works. So you can see here that the model that was selected is experiencing a high volume of traffic. That's what Kiro is saying. Try changing the model and rerunning your prompt. So which isn't nice. Let's change to Cloud Sonnet 4 because for this testing, we don't need so much reasoning. And let's say keep implementing the testing part. Let's see if we didn't lose the session. Otherwise, we have the progress, so no problem at all. So you can see here the task number 3, everything that was implemented, the endpoint register, login, verify email, front-end pages created, security features implemented, database integration, email system, node mailer integration for development, HTML templates, verification password reset, testing result, backend API, all APIs, okay. And these are the issues that were encountered. TypeScript compilation errors, front-end dependencies, CSS imports. As you can see, the implementation is having issues with the request object here. Okay, it says the session is too long. So no problem at all because we have the task progress and we can add a new session and then ask for the rest. So let's click on new session and let's ask before going and implement task 4, please make the testing, the backend and front-end testing work. Okay, I chose Cloud Sonnet 4.5. That is the most recent one at this moment. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to fix the testing issues faster than in the auto mode. So now it's trying to fix the mock part of this simple test. Why simple? If you take a look here, we have the mock user, we have the mock auth services, and you can see that register login are just FN, just an anonymous function, not the real one. But if we take a look at auth end-to-end spec, you can see that it creates the next application, and then it's gonna use the real endpoints to test. So it just deleted this file. Now it renames the file to skip. So you can see now that the backend tests are working now. The auth simple. Okay, all tests are passing now. Let's take a look at the summary. Here you can see test setup summary. So the auth service, the end-to-end test also passed. These 2 tests were skipped because of complex code database integration. I'm going to ask to create in the future a testing database in the container so that we can have a testing database similar to the production database. So the front-end testing also were green. And then if we take a look at task progress, we should have finished task 3 already. Let's see. You can see that it didn't commit because that requirement was added in the chat. So we should, for the future, update the tasks so that it always commits the modification. Please stage and commit your modifications and do it for every task or bug. Task progress log. So as you can see here in our Docker compose file, we don't have a mailing service for our project. So I'm going to ask it to add it to the Docker Compose file so that we can test also the email verification. So you didn't add the new files to be committed. So the command is being flagged for manual execution. Is weird because it was executed the last time. All right, let's ask Kiro to add the mailing service to our Docker Compose. Mail service so we can verify user email verification and password forgotten. So it's going to add a MailHog to Docker. You can see it here, MailHog. This is the image. Then we have the port here. And I hope that it uses those ports for testing our app. So we can add these environment variables here in .env, both local. And let's see, it is in here. Let's wait and see if it's gonna add it to the backend. Yeah, they were added here. You see email host, email port, email user, email password, but they have to be updated from the Docker Compose. But I think those are empty. Let's take a look now at the email service to see if it was updated. SRC on the backend auth and then email service. And you see that it's gonna read the email host, email port, email user, email password. Now it's updating the README files so that we have the information related to MailHog. You can see here the overview about setting MailHog. So the web interface is on localhost 8025. The SMTP server is going to be MailHog in Docker, and it's going to be localhost on the machine. So no authentication required, and it's going to capture the email sent by the backend. So let's see if it is up and running here on Docker. So it's not up and running, so it's up to us to stop Docker. So Docker down. So we don't need to build. Let's see if it takes the modification related to MailHog. Yeah, they were taken. All right, and now we have MailHog here. So let's just test the front end part with auth register, and let's see if we receive the email. Okay, let's use another real email. So it doesn't matter if it's real or not because we're gonna capture it with MailHog. All right, guys, you can see here that we have the email from the platform, and let's click on verify the email and see if this endpoint worked. Email verify, great. Let's go to login. Okay, there's an issue with the login because I'm pretty sure that the email is okay. Let's take a look at the console. There's this error from the backend. I'm gonna just ask to verify and test. But first, let's verify if that user was verified here in the database. So this is our user, Idran, and let's see if it's verified. Is email verified true? So it's okay. Let's just open this issue to Kiro. Signing. Oh, I registered as this email. My email was verified, but I get invalid credential from the front end. So you can see now that as I selected Cloud Sonnet 4.5, the code solutions are better than before, than when it was auto. So every time you need a nice code, a nice solution, try to use Cloud Sonnet 4.5 if it gets stuck into auto mode. So it just found out that there was a local auth guard on the login endpoint. The guard validates the user, but then the login method in the controller tries to validate again. Let me check that. So the local auth guard was interfering with the login flow by validating credentials before the controller method. But the login method was already handling validation internally, causing conflicts. The issue was fixed. It added the modifications. It updated also the everything. And let's go to the front-end part and verify that it works now. Let's just try again. It doesn't work yet. Let's verify the network call. So if we take a look here at the call, you can see that it's calling the localhost on port 3000 instead of 4000, that is our API. So you can see here that is calling /API/auth. So it means that it's not taking the public API URL. So it means here in the front end part, you see next public API URL. So this URL is not being read. Please verify that next public API URL is read from .env.local when building the front end. Currently, the front end is wrongly calling on port 3000. So I don't know why it didn't find that error. It means that the front end tests are failing also because it's not reading the next public URL correctly. So you can see the issue here that on server-side calls for Next.js, it should use the backend name because it's in Docker, okay? That's the service name in Docker. Then if the front end makes the call from the browser, then it has to use localhost if the call is executed on the client side and not on the backend side. So the issue is that the authorized function runs on the Next.js server side inside Docker. So it needs to use the internal Docker network URL. We need to add a separate environment variable for internal API calls. Let me fix this. Great, he found the issue. I didn't have to do it manually. So you see now that we have a new environment variable that is called NextAuth URL, different from the public one. And it should be here in the, let's see, where is it taking the configuration from? Okay, it's from the .env file because it's for the Docker Compose. So you can see here, API URL, backend 4000, NextAuth URL, localhost 3000. So we have to restart our Docker Compose to take the new Docker Compose down, up, -d, --build. So there are some issues with the node module. Maybe we have to remove the volumes. Let's just bring it down -v to remove the volume, and then let's build again. So we're having the same issue. The testing library React 14.3.4. So it's weird. Let's take a look. I'm gonna remove by myself the front-end node modules and let's build again. So the issue is here in the testing library. I'm gonna remove it manually and then I'm gonna install it manually. Oh, let's take a look. Let's see what Kiro does about it. This generates the following issue. Otherwise, we can install it manually. So the front end is using React 19, but testing library only supports React 18. So when in auto mode, it wrongly installed the library for React 18 instead of React 19. Okay, the modification was committed. Let's relaunch the Docker Compose up. Okay, let's execute Docker Compose up again. --build -d. So the problem is the log file. So it didn't remove the log file. So we have to remove the log file ourselves. So let's remove frontend package log.json. So the error persists. Let's just give it to Kiro. So the package log has to be regenerated to meet the latest modifications of the package.json. So let's give it a try now. All right, let's verify that it's working. We have to sign up again because I think, let's just give it a try just like that. Okay, and it works now. Let's go to sign in. Okay, maybe the database was wiped out. Let's give it a try again. Okay, registration success. Fully done. Let's go to Mailhog and let's verify our email. Okay, email verification successfully. And now we are logged in. So everything is working now. We have the dashboard, we have the account information. Okay, so we have the whole auth module up and running. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please register to keep up to date with this project and to learn tips and tricks of developing and also of using Kiro and other AI for programming. See you. Bye.